What's up,
Gotta give you.
everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Chaz. And today, my guest is Jordan Cole. Jordan, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to have you on the podcast. So, what I wanted to start out with, is as I found your content on Instagram, I thought it was really cool just seeing your journey through running a marathon and kind of the obstacles that came with that. So, share a little bit about that journey, before the marathon and then during it and kind of what you've been up to with fitness ever since then.
100%, man. I mean, I started fitness like as a kid, right? Like growing up, my grandfather was like the most like prominent football coach in our small little town, right? So I was always like really involved in sports and just community and things like that. Um, but I was always a really, really small kid. So after I graduated high school, sports were kind of behind me. I was just like, I'm gonna get into lifting. I'm gonna try to change my physique because I was maybe like, I don't know, man. When I graduated high school, I was 140 pounds, pretty skinny. Had like good definition, but like I just didn't have any muscle or any size. So right after high school, I got really into fitness. Started to kind of fall in love with lifting and actually seeing results, gaining muscle, and like with that gaining confidence as well. I did that honestly consistently for like a solid 5 years, 4 years. I didn't really get into cardio until like the end of college, like my last year, my super senior year, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but I just kind of wanted to like change it up. I've been doing lifting for so long, and lifting is such a great, form of training and everything, but you can go into a lift and you're not going to feel the same way that you feel when you go on a run. Just for like the way your heart feels, and like I noticed such a big difference training more of like an endurance based activity, which is why I want to change over to that. Just because you get so caught up when you're lifting, it's not like you feel bad, right? But I just felt like I was missing something. So I guess after 5 years of consistently lifting, I had met all my like strength goals, I met all my physique goals, and I was kind of in a state where I was like, I didn't feel like an imposter, right? But I felt like I got to be doing more, or I need to have like a bigger overarching goal. So I got into running a little bit, here and there. I'd go for a jog, or I'd pick up running for a couple weeks. Like I feel every single college kid does at some point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be a runner. You maybe even buy a pair of running shoes, then you run for 2 weeks and you quit because it sucks. Uh, but I like decided finally, I was like, you know what? Like I'm not really happy where I am right now with my fitness goals. I'm gonna just kind of send it and say I'm gonna run a marathon, which is like a crazy outlandish thing for me to do because up to that point I'd only ran like 10K at the most.
Hmm.
And I'm by no means am I a strong runner. Uh, or I wasn't. Now I'm getting decent, but having like a lot of like lifting strength and stuff too, and like more upper body dominance didn't help me at all for running. So it was kind of like a big um goal to set. I didn't really know if I was honestly gonna be able to do it, but that was back in like, oh God, like 2022, beginning of 2022. So like I think for the new year, it was around like January. I'm like, you know what? I'm running a marathon this year. Originally gave myself like 180 days to do it because I want to just set like a hard time goal.
Hmm.
Realizing like ultimately I have no idea what I'm talking about. At that time, thought I could do it in 180 days. Started hitting it super hard. Bought like a program from Nick Bear, if you're familiar with him at all,
Hmm.
VPN guy, big hybrid athlete. Bought a program from him, started running, but had no endurance base, so I got hurt right away. Right, I messed up my left leg. I was out, had to do like physical therapy for a solid 2 3 months. And then come like April time or something, that's when I really locked into marathon training. Did it right this time, built a base, just doing consistent miles each week. I actually used this book right here. It's like the non-runner's guide to running a marathon, written by like some professors in the 90s. They used to have like a class uh, where in order to pass the class, you had to run a marathon. It was like a 3 credit course or something like that.
That's
You could
crazy.
walk it, you could do whatever, but you needed to finish the marathon. Their like big selling point was that nobody who had taken the class and read the book like was unsuccessful. There were guys who like there was one guy who was like a former like he had like paralysis, right, from some accident, and he managed to walk it and like did it. So like super inspiring. I'm like, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it.
Hmm.
Followed that training plan for the 16 weeks during the summer. Absolute fight, man, but got it done. Yeah, it's seriously the most rewarding experience I've had in my life so far, just setting like a big goal like that and pushing through it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I gotta check out that book too, actually. I've never
100%.
read it.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's really cool because last summer I got real into running too because it kind of went in line with my weight loss goals too. And
Sure.
there's definitely a feeling that you get doing that you don't get in the gym. And it's it's so mental too though because I feel like sometimes you can almost walk your way through a workout, like go through the motions and not get the best workout, but
Yeah.
when you're running, you're constantly, like you're in it the whole time and it's such a mental battle. And I remember running my first half marathon and it's probably like it's a funny story now, but it was really stupid of me. I had to go to the ER because my back was like I had some weird like back tightness or whatever.
Sure.
Well, not the ER, the hospital, but yeah, so I got that all X-rayed and like they went and like checked my veins and whatever, and the dude like messed up my vein and I was like spewing blood in the hospital, and so it was like the guy like yeah, it was just like between that and then like my back had been bothering me and I was like telling my mom all this. I was like, yeah, my back's bothering me. I should probably like take it easy. I remember I saw your video where you're saying how people always say it's hard to run, like, they're like, "Oh, I can never run, like, more than 2 miles." And you're
Yeah.
just like, you basically just have to go at a pace where you can, like, keep breathing, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I saw that, and it was, like, either, like, a day or a couple days after that, like, my back was still bothering me. I was like but I saw that and I was like, "No, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and just do it." And it was, like, the middle of the Florida summer. Dude, it was killer, like, those last few miles in the heat like that,
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
it sucked, man. I got home and, like, but, like, the mental, like, reward that you get from that, like, as hard as that one was, I've done multiple now, and so
Yeah.
it's just such a like, when you start that run in the morning, you're, like, a different person at the end of it. It's, like it's crazy what it does to you when you push those limits, and it's it's just super cool, and, like, seeing all the running stuff that like, your whole journey, it is super inspirational, like, it one of my friends told me this once too, like, you have no idea how many people you impact. Some people, like, will never tell you,
Sure.
like, if you weren't on this podcast, like, I may have never told you that, but, like, dude, like, your marathon journey is sick, dude, like, it got me out there doing it even when, like, I'd never done it before, but so yeah, also too, so going into that marathon then, you had a
Yeah.
lot of weather problems, right? Like the
Dude,
race got canceled, right?
brutal, brutal. Yeah, yeah. But just like saying what you said, we're like you're going at a slower pace. Just to
Mhm.
hop onto that quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's like such a common misconception. People are like, "Oh, I can't run," because they're going out there and they're trying to run a pace that they just can't maintain. You
Mhm.
kind of just gotta like swallow your ego right away. Like I remember thinking like, "Oh, I'm gonna run a marathon in 8 minutes, 8 minutes flat pace consistently," because
Yeah.
like I'd ran a couple miles and could do that, but went out there and I like quickly realized through my training I had to like do a 9 to 10, even 11 minute pace at times, man,
Mhm.
just to keep control. And like it sucks when you see guys that you think like, oh, I'm probably more athletic than this guy, and that guy's just whizzing by you doing like a
Yeah.
7 minute mile. You just got to swallow your ego and like slowly build that base, especially
Mhm.
if you don't come from a background of running. Um, it's just your body's not used to it. You really got to work on that cardiovascular endurance base and just slowly progress up. It takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely does, and I learned that too, because I played soccer, like, my whole life. My whole life was running, but
Yeah.
I was never the best endurance-wise, so I was always had that like, that quick burst, like, run up and down the
Yep.
line, like, one time, and I was like, I had the pace, but endurance was never really my big thing. I think going into college, um, I think my longest run, like, up until, like, a year or 2 ago when I got really into running was 5 miles, and
Yeah.
that was
That's the case for most people, I feel like.
yeah, oh, definitely, and I am thankful, though, that I had somewhat of a base. Like, I think soccer gave me
Yep.
a little bit,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's definitely yeah, like you said, most people kinda they go into it and, they go through a couple weeks of, "Oh, I'll run a mile every day," and then, like, whenever they stop that like, they don't push it past that, they don't build the sufficient base, but, yeah, no, I have crazy respect for marathon runners too, like and
Oh
then
yeah.
what's crazy too about it is you know, you look at a marathon and most people are like, "Oh, I can never do that. Like I would never be able to do that." And then you have like ultra marathon runners. And then you have like, you know, Ironmans and like
Oh
David
yeah, it's
Goggins
just
type stuff.
one level, another level, and it just keeps expanding. You're like, people, it's so cool how people can just keep like doing the impossible with it though. Because
Yeah,
like I
it's
look at myself, I'm like,
wild.
oh, I did a marathon 2 years ago. You asked me on a random day, will you ever run a marathon? My answer would have been absolutely not.
Yeah.
Zero chance, no chance I could. But then it's like, I don't know, people just are always one upping it. And now I'm like, I probably couldn't run an ultra, but then I'm like, wait, why couldn't I? You know?
Is that a goal of yours ever? Like once you ran the marathon, was that something you thought about or was like that not really like something you wanted to do?
I mean, I've thought about it. So my ex-girlfriend's parents are super into that kind of stuff, doing
Mhm.
like ultra 100 milers out wherever they can find it, Ironmans, all that. So it's like super inspiring. And in the future, definitely like would consider it. Right now, I don't have anything on my plate for it. I'm doing another a half marathon this time around. Honestly, after I finished my marathon at first, I feel like that was such a big goal, and like my whole purpose of the year was to do that marathon
Mhm.
that I did it. And then I honestly just kind of got burnt out. I didn't run like for pretty much the remainder of the year. I tried out like some jujitsu and some other stuff, but uh, I guess I just need to like try to find a bigger goal again. And whether that's an ultra marathon, man, or it's like getting into something new, time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I totally know the feeling too. Like even on a smaller scale, when I was hitting like PRs when I was going like 1 or 2 miles above the half marathon, I was
Yeah,
even like the next 2 days, I'm like, dude, I don't want to run like at all. Like
no,
it takes
no,
it out of you because like the amount of like mental strength to set that goal and be like, all right, I'm gonna do it, and then you do it,
yeah,
and it's like now I just kinda, like, don't know what to do with myself, like, I don't really particularly wanna run anymore,
yep,
but it's one of those things where, yeah, you kinda I feel like you have to just keep on, like, finding that goal, that next thing to
yep, yep.
look for. So so for you so you don't know, like, what that is yet, or do you have any are you just kinda, like, trying to maintain
So
what
I mean, yeah, right now it's the half marathon. I'm training
mhm,
for that. I have it. It's actually the same venue that I did my marathon at last year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, doesn't get canceled and whatnot.
yeah,
But I'm going to try to go for a quicker time. So I want to do a sub 2 hour half, which I think I actually will hopefully be able to do like a 1:45, if not a little under.
mhm.
Really been grinding on that for the last couple of months. That's kind of my main focus right now.
What pace
But
is that you're
yep.
shooting for?
So right now, ideally, I don't quote me off the top of my head. I'm not sure what it would be. I think it's like 8:20 to 8:40 or something like that.
Okay.
So it's significantly quicker than what I was running my marathon at. And I'll get into the story of the marathon and everything too for pacing. Because ideally my marathon would have been probably closer to like 4.5 hours. It ended up being like 5 by the time you factor in weather delay. Me just being dead as well. Like I'm not gonna make an excuse and say, I'm the
Mhm.
quickest runner ever or whatever. Definitely slower for my first one, but I hoping at least with the half to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah. I've definitely looked at shooting under 2 hours for a half as well,
Yeah.
and I haven't ran a full yet, so that's one thing I've been, like, trying to figure out what I wanna do first, but I definitely think too that's a good idea to like, once you did the whole thing, you did a whole marathon,
Yeah.
you can even look at instead of, like, just keep tacking on miles, it's like, "Alright, let's try to get the time that I have done faster," and then, yeah, try to get a
100%.
faster half and then a faster, like, full marathon and then,
And
go from there.
that's the whole point of it. Like, it's really easy to look at other people and be like, "Oh, this guy's doing a hour 30 half marathon. I need to do that." But it's
Mhm,
really important to evaluate it from yourself because everyone has different genetic capabilities, whether that's like in lifting, if that's in running, whatever. Like, my base is going to be completely different than your base. I think
mhm,
it's really hard in like the days of social media, especially because you just see all these people online constantly. You're constantly comparing yourself to them. To like be like, oh, I need to do exactly what they're doing or better, and you kind of feel bad about yourself, but you really got to look at it strictly from what you're working with, right?
yeah, oh, 100%. So that's funny you mentioned too, like, comparing yourself to other
Yep.
people. Do you consider yourself like a content creator, fitness influencer? Because I know that, you graduated, you have a job too, and I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
asking you, I was like, "Do you do content full time?" And you said you just do it for fun, so
Yep.
do you consider, like, if someone asked you, would you be like, "I make fitness content," or like, where do you stand
Honestly,
on
at one point, I 100% would have said that. So I would
that?
say like for my social media journey, kind of started in 2021 after a breakup. I feel like that's most people's stories of getting into fitness or whatnot.
Yeah.
Started posting a little bit and kind of got some traction. I did like 75 hard, um, and got a little bit of traction just doing videos like that. Stayed pretty small, and then I got an opportunity to get on a Physique of the Week ad with Gym Heroes. They do like Snapchat ads.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like this story. So I got an opportunity, and I was like, honestly, thought it was a scam at first. I'm like, this isn't really anything. I had like maybe 1,000 followers. Didn't really do social. I just did social media strictly for fun, right?
Hmm.
Got an opportunity to get on that, and I was like, I sent in all these details, like my story, whatever. Went to bed. A couple days later, all of a sudden, I get like a bunch of texts from my buddies from high school, and like they're like, "Dude, you're on the front page of Snapchat," and I'm like, "What?" Like I'm like dead front and center, picture of me on the story. No one even knew I was like had gotten like decently fit because I was like I said pretty skinny in high school and stuff.
Hmm.
Had a bunch of people like texting me about it, and then like got like a little bit of a following off that. Then that kind of progressed and kind of realized like, oh shoot, maybe I actually have an opportunity to kind of make a name for myself in this.
Yeah.
So then throughout college, I just kept pushing that. I joined a couple different like fitness organizations. One was like Yoke Club. I'm not sure if you've heard of them or not.
Yeah. I
They
don't
got
think so.
rebranded as Dogged Sportswear, but a guy down in Texas owns it. So he found my stuff, gave me an opportunity to fly down there and do some like photo shoots and do like kind of like sponsorship with them, which like helped boost it further and kind of just like gained a gradual following. Then I got like super into it, man. I bought a nice camera. I was like recording stuff all the time. Just because I had more free time in college, I
Hmm.
was kind of doing like landscape and stuff, in the summers for college, but still primarily just focusing on school and then having a ton of extra free time.
Hmm.
Um, to answer your question, in college, I would have considered myself, oh yeah, like I'm trying to be a fitness influencer, all this kind of stuff. And then I guess like I don't know, man, your priorities change. I got enjoyment out of it. It was like help pay the bills in college and stuff, and got to like network and make some awesome connections within the industry, even like with some of the bigger guys who are just absolutely crushing it right now.
Hmm.
Uh, but I kind of just like slowly realized this isn't necessarily what I want to do and push fully. I was in college, like I did well in college, and I kind of want to focus on a traditional career as well. In
Hmm.
addition, um, so yeah, to answer your question now, I'm saying more so it's a hobby rather than trying to do it as a full time gig.
Yeah. That's so interesting too, because while you kind of like got in better shape and like kind of started to blow up in college, I kind of
Yeah.
did the exact opposite. Like, so I played 1 year or 1 semester, so like a full season of soccer in college, and
Yep.
then I transferred, went back home, and then I ended up graduating from Clemson. But when I got there, dude, my diet was trash. I was
Yeah.
I was partying all dude, like, all the time. I didn't really I took partying like a sport, dude.
That's
Like,
everyone's story, man. You get the freshman 15 going,
yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
dude, yeah, I put on 15 pounds as a college athlete too. So
yeah,
like think about how much bigger I would have got if I wasn't playing soccer at the time. And then I left and I put on like 15 more pounds. And so like I got really heavy, and then like my last like year or two, I like dropped the weight,
yeah,
and my fitness has become like a huge part of my life. But
yep.
it's just so did that ever get in the way? Did like college and like the
Yeah,
lifestyle?
yeah, I was just about to correct you on that. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want you to think this is like I started here and the journey was like
Yeah.
just straight up at a 45-degree angle, and now I'm here, dude. I mean, so many highs and lows with it. Like,
Mhm.
I'd still go out in college, party, drink, all that kind of stuff that is really clashing with my fitness goals.
Yeah.
And kind of just creating like inner turmoil, and that's like been a constant struggle. I think now that I've like graduated and stuff, and even in the last like senior year of college, I feel like I've matured a lot and focused more on trying to be like healthier rather than enjoy, going out drinking, doing all these things. Not because it's not fun. Like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome to go out with buddies and hang out, but I've been really trying to focus on things that give me fulfillment rather than
Mhm.
something that's just going to be like a quick dopamine high. So, and for me, that's like accomplishing major goals, trying to better my career, trying to better my fitness goals, all those kind of things. But I definitely want it to be clear it's not a linear process by any means. And I think social media can kind of paint a picture where people are only posting the positives.
Mhm.
Uh, like if you'll see like my posting has declined a lot at times where I won't post for a couple months, and it's because maybe I'm not doing the best of things and I just don't have anything to share. It's
Yeah.
it's part of life. So
No, I appreciate you correcting me too, because I totally would have thought that you were
yeah, no,
like quick climb to, like, that's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that too, and I think that that's good for anyone listening, that social media, you can look like you're always at the top, but like you said, if there's gaps in when you've been posting, or like you haven't been posting certain things, it's like we're not everyone, like we're not always going to be up here. And so it's
Yep,
like it's super important. Like I'm glad you said that, because I think social media really screws with people, because you have people who are like year round shredded,
no doubt.
not natty, like they're like, it's like, how do you compete with that? It's like, well, you kind of can't, unless you're
No.
on stuff and your like whole life revolves around like always being like lean for pictures. So
That's how it
it's
is, dude. Like life is a video. Social media is like a tiny still frame from that video at
mhm.
any given time, and you get to select which frames you get to show people, which isn't fair at times. Don't get me wrong. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you're guilty of it. Everyone is, because
Oh
you want
yeah.
to put the best version of yourself out there, right? You
Oh
want,
yeah.
even if you're not that thing, you want to become that. So you're gonna try to project that in the world and like kind of manifest it in a way. But it's just really important to try to remember when you're seeing these people who are like perfect life, perfect things. Everyone's got stuff, man. It's not as good as it seems. I promise.
Oh yeah. No, 100%. So do you have any like people in the fitness industry that you do look to and like kind of aspire to, like, who in the industry then do you really want, like, either enjoy their content or just
Yeah.
like the physique or whatever message they put out?
Sure. I don't watch stuff as much as I used to. Now since I'm really into like the hybrid style training things, and like I said, getting a little bit older, it's dumb to say like, oh, I've matured so much in the last 6 months since I graduated, but it really does feel like at a different level of maturity than you
Mhm.
are in college. Start thinking about more future things. I like Nick Bear's stuff a lot. I watch like most of his videos on just getting tips for hybrid training, all that kind of deal. A couple of guys that I just like know and like I've talked to and stuff. I like Fonzian. I don't know if you've seen him at all, his stuff,
Yeah, I don't
but
know. Yeah, I don't know if I have.
sure, he's good stuff. He's like backpacking in Spain for like 3 months right now. Just got out
Okay,
of the Coast Guard.
that's
Um,
cool.
it's like some of those guys. There's another guy, Nick Peterson. He does like cinematic videos and stuff.
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
was a phase where I really got into that. Like that's all I cared about was doing highest quality videos. Trying to like replicate those kind of ideas, and he was always a really big inspiration for me.
Mhm.
Like I said, since I've kind of stepped away and not pursued this as much and treated it really more as a hobby, I'm not as involved as I was.
Mhm.
But I mean, you got other guys that you've just seen like blow up and stuff, which is pretty cool. Like Max Taylor, I'm sure you know them. Like Alex
Yeah.
Eubank, all the
Mhm.
the usuals and stuff too. But for me, it's if your content, if you can tell that their content's genuine and they're putting out a positive message, for me, which would be just trying to inspire people through fitness, making people like laugh and having like fun too, as well is also important. Like life's not meant just to be serious all the time. Like
Yeah.
I know I have a tendency to take things really seriously sometimes and a bit too like focused on those things, and it can kind of boil over and then you just feel like burnt out. But
Yeah, I think that it's funny you mentioned too, like taking life too seriously. Sometimes I would even attribute a lot of my weight loss to taking life too seriously, because I got so locked into this like hyper like David Goggins, like I
yep,
wake up and I'm like, oh, I gotta go carry the boats and the logs, like I'm so screwed. Like
someone's got to carry the boats.
dude, someone has to do it. And yeah, I was like, yeah, my whole feed was just like the algorithm picked up on it too.
Yeah,
So like I was constantly like, no, I don't know if I would say like too serious, but definitely I think to get to your goal, sometimes you have to be like that, but then
yep.
like pump the brakes a little bit and like live your life afterwards, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, can't get lost in the sauce, so to speak, man.
Yeah. Yeah, um yeah, dude, it just like taking it too seriously like for too long, I think will burn you out, but I think you need it for, yeah, like for however long you need to like get to where you want to be, but then I feel like maintaining, I don't know about you, if like you could have an opinion on this, like do you think maintaining is easier than getting to where you want to be? Because I'm not as lean as I want to be yet, but I feel like
Sure.
getting like once you're there, like don't you think it's like a little easier to maintain it than it is like
Uh,
constantly?
well, it depends if you're going for like sub 5% body fat or not, but like just
Yeah, yeah.
reaching like a physique goal or something like that and like being able to maintain it, yeah, it's obviously going to be a lot easier than trying to do like something really strenuous and completely transform your body. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
would agree.
Yeah, well, like I never. I don't really see like bodybuilding like actually being on stage ever something I want to do. So like I would
Yeah,
never.
I'm with you there on that, man. A lot of people like kind of put it in my head initially that like, oh, you should do bodybuilding. I'm like, oh, maybe I should, but maybe you feel the same way, but I just feel like it's cool. I respect people who do and stuff. It's just like not something that would bring me a lot of fulfillment.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat because I don't I don't really see the appeal. Like for me personally, to get on stage doesn't really do much more for me than being like 5% like heavier, like because you gotta get
Yeah,
like I've heard crazy stories where people like it hurts when they sit down because of how lean
it's
they get.
unhealthy. It's I got some buddies that have gotten really into it, and like
Hmm.
mad respect to them. Like, and it's awesome. Like, it's such a cool experience to see that and stuff. And like, that's their thing. They're regimented. It's takes insane discipline. You can't have a cheat. Like for me, if I like really like am feeling down or something, or like it's nice just to go have a cheat meal or something. Like eat
Yeah.
something good. You can't do that. Like with if you're trying to do some kind of crazy bodybuilding goal.
Hmm.
So mad respect to those guys, but like you said, it's just I like to think of like fitness and stuff now in terms of like how can I like live the best and the healthiest life possible. So I really focus on things that's gonna like make me make like have like longevity, right?
Hmm.
Trying to do like more cardio, a mix of like athletic training and stuff. Just doing bodybuilding, just getting down to that like pretty much starvation percentage of body fat is not doing any of that. It's really stressful on your body.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like you said too, you can't have a cheat meal. You can't like there you're that's like that to me is like a real example of like when it gets so serious to the point where yeah, like you can't have a cheat meal. You can't ever yeah, you can't skip anything really. It's like
Right.
to the T. And
Regimented.
oh yeah, and I don't know, like me personally, it's like you can get to like 12, like 10 to 12% body fat, look great, and still be able to like live a life.
Oh yeah.
And I would you say too that even like stuff like running and like doing like a marathon and stuff, like when you get too low of a body fat, would that hinder that too?
Oh,
Because you're
you do
like so like dry and
100%.
depleted.
100%. So last year when I was training, I moved to Madison, Wisconsin last summer.
Mhm.
They have some really nice running trails and stuff. So I was working an internship full time, and then I was running, and that's literally all I did all summer.
Mhm.
Um, I think I started training probably close to 180 pounds, maybe 178 or so.
Mhm.
By the time I finished my marathon training, I expected to lose weight, obviously, but I think I finished like 165 pounds. Like I lost a
Wow.
substantial amount of weight. Um, I was still kind of learning how to eat adequately during that time because it's a lot. You need to eat to feel compared to like lifting and stuff. It's more just about calories in, calories out. With obviously there's more to it than that, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, I guess for running though and like being such a low body fat because by the end of it I was cut, man. Like I was so skinny, lost so much strength, lost so much muscle, but I was getting sick all the time. I felt just terrible all the time. No matter how much I slept, I was tired. I wouldn't even want to eat sometimes, even though I needed food because I'm
Mhm.
having to eat so much, to even like try to keep my calories up. Um, it's not fun being that low percentage of a body fat. Your body needs fat, it needs muscle, it needs everything to survive. Being that low and like really pushing your limits like that is going to obviously negatively impact your performance.
Yeah, that's what I would have figured too because yeah, once running is just so interesting because you look at these really like the best runners really skinny almost like they don't have a
Yep.
lot of size on them, but that's with eating a lot too. That's how much mileage they're putting on that like they constantly need to fuel or there's like no way for them to even like move their body and so like
Yeah.
that was something for me too when like running is a good tool for weight loss, but if you want to become a great runner, you can't look at it as a weight loss tool. And I learned that very quickly where it was like, oh, if I run this much and I'm in this big of a deficit, like I'm gonna lose weight quicker. It's like technically that's true, but if you really want to become a great runner, I feel like you can't look at it from the perspective of I'm gonna lose so much weight
Yeah.
because then you're not gonna be able to fuel yourself and then you're gonna burn out or get hurt or get sick, like you said.
All depends on what your goals is, man. For like anything, even like our bodybuilding talk we were just talking about, like
Mhm.
I got buddies who do it and like I respect the hell out of them for it and it's awesome. But like I try to evaluate everything from my own perspective with that. Like,
Mhm.
is this something I want personally? And if it's not, obviously like I'm not gonna go for it. I respect people who do it because at the end of the day, like if that's what brings you fulfillment is like either getting super skinny for running to being the best runner possible, or like kind of a balancing, like you were saying,
Mhm.
or getting super lean and going on stage and competing, like whatever brings you fulfillment, you got to do it. But you just really got to evaluate it from yourself. That's the big thing.
Oh yeah. No, 100%. And I think that the quicker you realize that and kind of like figure out what your own goals are compared to seeing what people do on a, on social media, be like, "Oh, that guy does bodybuilding or this guy does this or that, like I want to do that." It's like figure out what you really want to do and
Yeah, man.
through trial and error. And I think the best thing about it too is, like at the end of the day, look at fitness and nutrition and everything as a tool to live a better life, be
Oh yeah.
healthy, happy, you'll look better, you'll be more confident, and you can move around. And then from there kind of feel like find what niche like is really what you want to focus on. And then yeah, like take more time doing that. But
Oh yeah.
first just, look at it from the just like it makes you a healthier human being, which I think like even if you don't consider yourself an athlete or maybe not yet, it's like you should be in the gym, you should be running, you should be walking, eating clean anyways, because like you need to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you, because you kind of asked earlier, I brushed it off, and I was wanted to meant to get back to it. But just like starting out with actually running the marathon, like going into it, I didn't even have the mindset of, am I going to be able to do this successfully? Which is crazy, right? Like you were saying, you go out on a run, you'll do 10 miles, you're like, I don't really want to do this anymore, right? Like you don't
Mhm.
want to do it again after you do it. I kind of
Yeah.
felt the same way, even at the day of the marathon, as like negative that it kind of is. Like a couple weeks before, I was out in Colorado doing a training run. I had like an 18 miler. It was gonna be the longest distance I had done for my like Sunday long run, leading up into it, and it was awful, man. I mean, I was probably running a started like a 9 minute pace, probably got like solid 12 miles in, and my foot started hurting. I was like, I'm just
Mhm.
gonna finish it up regardless. So I ended up like hurting my foot on that 18-mile run. Took like a solid week or two off before I actually decided, or like before my race day was, right. So on race day, I hadn't really ran in a while. I'm like, oh God, I don't even know if I can do this. Like it's been a while. Like I kind of missed like a solid week or two of training.
Mhm.
Things didn't really go how they were like planned, but I was like, whatever. I signed up. I already paid, $100 or whatever it is to run. It's like I might as well try. So we line up or whatever. I'm like, good to go. I guess I'm kind of feeling decent, a little bit worried, but obviously like with anything I do, I'm gonna give it 100% best effort. Bell goes off, gun goes off, whatever it was. Start like mile one, mile two, pretty decent. I'm going at like a nice slow 10-minute pace just because I want to start slow, kind of feel myself out, get moving. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, these giant storm clouds roll in. Starts raining a little bit. I'm like, it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna be that big of a deal. And I think I get to like mile four, and they halt the race. They tell everyone to stop, and it's like a 15-minute delay. So we're sitting there waiting around, like, oh, hopefully the storm's gonna pass. Me and another guy who like I met on the course, I don't remember his name. We're like, dude, like we're just gonna keep going. So we kept going. And then a bunch of people followed too because we were like, we want to like run it regardless if it's gonna be canceled. Because at the time there were a lot of talks of, is this race gonna be called off completely? What's gonna happen? So we kept going. We got to like mile like 6, 7 ish. They stopped us again. They were like, seriously, you guys can't run. Like this is too dangerous. Like we're calling the race here. It's this is it. Like you just got to stop. You got to end. Um, Me and a couple other runners, not even like we didn't even talk about it or anything. My mindset with it is like I'm already out here running, right? I kind of want to just finish it. Because kind of like you were saying, I don't really know if I want to run another
Yeah.
this distance again. Like in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing it today. I'm doing it today.
Yeah.
Um, Kept running, got absolutely downpoured on. My shoes had like a solid 3 inches of water in them. Every time I took a step, it was like a sponge just exploding outward. Uh, Absolute fight, blisters everywhere. I'm freezing because it dropped a ton, temperature wise. There's
Mhm.
lightning everywhere, thunder. They disband all of the aid stations on like mile 10. So I'm without aid stations, no water, no food, no nothing. I like
Yeah.
call my girlfriend up. I call my family. I'm like, hey, I need to get some crackers and everything just so I can try to push through. Get to like the halfway mark and it's like dead. There's no one else out there. Uh, Still feeling pretty decent at this point, right?
Mhm.
Um, Probably running like I said, maybe a 10:30 pace, something like that. So not too quick, obviously, by comparison. If you're comparing yourself to Goggins or somebody who's a bit quicker, but holding my own for sure.
Yeah.
Think I honestly went pretty decent given the situation to like mile 18. And then 19 and 20 started feeling like my feet were really hurting, man. I was really dragging. In the last like the last six, people always say this, the last six is like the official halfway point of the marathon, not
Hmm.
in mileage, but in terms of energy and mental strength. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like I was kind of just brushing that off, didn't really think anything of it because the whole time I'm popping gel chews and stuff for trying to keep my energy levels up.
Yeah.
But anyways, like mile 20 hit, man, and it was like it was awful. I mean, I went from running like a solid, like I said, 10:30 pace to like I was barely moving, like one step after the other. Um, I remember I had a friend, his name's Darian. He's a bodybuilder guy. He was there supporting me and like driving by me. And I just remember it's like mile 22 or something. I like kept making deals in my head where I'd be like, oh, it's not that I have to finish the race. I'd be like, oh, I have to get to this next mailbox and then I can walk, or I have to get this next water fountain and then I can walk.
Hmm.
Knowing full well I probably wasn't going to walk, but it those little like goals that you can set and actively achieve just help keep pushing you forward. And I remember I like made this deal like mile 22, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna walk after I get to the end of this block or whatever. Like I my legs are on fire. I'm dead. I'm gonna finish it, but I need to take a break. I look over and I just see Darian. He's got this like old beat up green minivan, like rusted out in the bottom, like probably from like early 2000s. And he doesn't even say anything. He just points at me, makes eye contact as if he's just to saying like, I'm watching you, man. Like you got to keep going. And that like I got chills down my spine, man. I like kept going, and that that bought me probably a solid 500 feet of motivation.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually managed to not walk, with the exception of there was one instance at like mile 24 as I was stumbling along, where I had like a Garmin heart monitor tracking my heart rate, and my
Hmm.
heart rate went from like all of a sudden it jumped pretty high to like 170, and then it just fell to like 60, and like I could feel it. I thought I was going to pass out, so I
Oh wow.
stopped. I walked for a little bit just to gather myself. And pushed on by some miracle, man, and finished. It was like such a one step at a time situation, though. I remember like it was myself and the two other people that were still running it, and they were actually ahead of me. I think it's like mile 25, mile 26. Like I'm right near the end, and I see these two people, and they start walking. And I was like, oh God, like this is terrible. Like you see someone else walking, it like justifies you to do it. Same thing with anything in life, right? You see other people drinking or partying or smoking, whatever. You
Yeah.
from your perspective, you're like, I can do it too.
Hmm.
So I remember thinking that, and I like somehow, man, I don't know where I found this energy. If it was just within me, like God, whatever you want to say it is. Like I don't even consider myself that religious anymore. Grew up Lutheran, right? But I I literally was begging with anything, any higher power or spiritual presence of just get me through this, man. Give me like five more steps, and somehow managed to do it, man. I dragged myself to the finish line, and great experience, I guess.
That's awesome, man. That's such a cool story, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a God thing, man. You kept going
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. I think that's so cool. And so when they canceled it, right? You know, they
yep.
took the aid stations, they pulled everything away. Were you at risk of like actually like getting in trouble at that point running, or is it like nobody
Yeah,
can
yeah.
nobody stop you? You know, like what do you do
So
there?
it's obviously not condoned by race officials. The way the Madison Loop works is there's a big lake. It's called Lake Monona, like right next to the Capitol and stuff. Um, the trails are all public, and then road trails as well. So like
Hmm.
legally, you can't stop me from going on the road. Um, but don't get me wrong, they definitely strongly insisted that I stop. They said that at both times they tried stopping us like mile 4, mile 7. Um, and then as well as the halfway point, they're like, stop, the race is canceled. You can't keep doing a second lap. And not like from like a point of disrespect, or I'm trying to disrespect the race organizers by keep going, because obviously there is the potential on their end for a liability of what if
Hmm.
I get hurt? Like lightning was genuinely there. It was scary a couple times.
Yeah.
But I I mean, like the way I did saw it, I was like, I was already here. I want to do it. Like, I understand you might be upset if I'm going to keep doing this, but there's not really legal grounds for you to like come and haul me away because it's a public road.
Hmm.
And I think the other people who also finished, like I said, there were, I don't remember, maybe two or three of them. I think they probably had a pretty similar mindset.
Yeah, I think too there's kind of strength in numbers. I don't think they could bust like all three or four of you guys. Like
Yeah.
at that point it's like you said too, yeah, I mean they can say we don't condone it or like you should leave, like please leave, like
Yeah.
I'm begging you please leave, but like at what point, you know, like if you just keep going, I mean, you could say you were going for a run on a public
Yeah.
trail.
Right. I'm just jogging, not doing the race anymore.
Yeah.
I, the thing that's cool about running like a race like that, and obviously you've done
Hmm.
half marathons, so you understand how like your body wants to quit at one point, right? Like you
Mhm.
might be mile 3, it might be mile 10, it might be mile 13, whatever it is. There's everything's telling you to stop. It really does become, can you mentally overpower what your body wants and like kind of tell it, hey, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
And that's like where the coolest part of it is, because you do get like a sense of like a runner's high. I think it's when your body finally realizes that your mind's not going to let it stop
yeah.
whatsoever, like no matter what. It's kind of like, okay, instead of fighting you, this guy's psycho enough to keep going. I'm just going to give him the energy he needs, and freaking, we're gonna have to figure it out later. Hopefully, he recovers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a mind over matter type of thing for sure. And I've never done an official half marathon like through a race with
Sure.
everything. But I would almost say that like I'm kind of glad that I haven't yet because doing it alone, it almost like amplifies the mindset because
Yeah.
you know, like, when because, you know, you kept pushing and, like, you were in a race, like, with other people and, you know, you said, you're like, "I paid the money," and, like,
Yeah.
all this and, like and I'm not saying that I could just go, like, run a marathon or whatever, but, like, doing the half marathons, like, alone and I'm sure you could even say the same thing with, like, your individual training, like, leading up to the marathon.
Yeah.
You're kinda, like, building that mental fortitude so that when it comes to the race, it's like, yeah, it's an official race, but on top of that, you've already, like, trained your mind to be like, "We're not gonna stop, like, I'm gonna keep going, like, if I can do it when I'm alone, I can do it at a race too." You know what I mean? It's kinda like
Right. I
the
mean,
icing on
there's
the cake.
there's good intrinsic value to it, I think, when you're training alone, like with yourself, where
Mhm.
there's all these factors of people cheering you on and the pressure of the race and all this kind of like extrinsic motivators. Which you're in the race, you want that. Don't get me wrong, because like you want to leave it all out there, right? But like you said, I mean, the real mental battle and mental endurance is definitely when you're out there at 5 a.m. or 8 p.m., whatever time it is, just grinding by yourself, no one there to kind of keep you going.
Oh, yeah. So what was your training schedule like? Are you more of like an early morning? Were you up getting your miles in, or was it like were you getting your miles in at night? Like how did that training work for you?
So for like the first half of running, I was doing trying to do more morning focus, just because you can't beat a morning run.
Oh yeah.
If you do like a little bit of fasted or just like a light meal too, ideally that's when races are going to be too. So you kind of want to prepare your body to be training in the morning. However, I found myself having a lot of difficulty waking up early enough before work, especially for some of the longer runs where you're running for 2+ hours at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so not it wasn't ideal that I started doing afternoon runs, but it just kind of happened. Because another drawback from doing afternoon running is it's going to be hotter a lot of times. So I'm running in peak heat at 4 or 5 p.m. Sun blaring down. Wisconsin gets hot here, man. It's I mean, I'm sure Clemson down where you're at and stuff too gets pretty
Oh
warm,
yeah.
man. You know the feeling. But sun
Mhm.
right on you, nothing to break it. It's gonna hurt your mile time. It's gonna hurt your body a little bit too. So ideally, I would have loved to do morning runs, but it ended up being more of an afternoon training schedule for me.
Yeah, I've been in the same boat, honestly. Like I love the morning runs. Like it's an awesome feeling like when you're up and you get like a light meal, you get a little bit of coffee and then you're out the door and
Yeah,
it's like you get back from your run and it's like 9 in the morning and you're like, dude, this like especially on the weekends where you know you kind of have a little bit more leeway with time, like without work and everything. And you get
yeah,
home and it's like 9 or 10 and you're like, dude, I just ran for 2 hours. This is great, you know, like sets the
yeah,
tone, but night runs too, I sometimes I definitely fall in that same path, like, same category of, like, you know, between waking up or work or, you know, at the point when I was in school, like, school on top of
yeah.
that too, like and I honestly don't mind running at night though, like, if it get like, when it gets cool enough,
Oh yeah,
but the morning runs are I see a commonality too, like a lot of running like fitness influencers or like athletes on social media. It's like they promote the morning run like
oh yeah.
way more than like a midday or a night
it,
run.
it's a good way to start your day because it sets the mood right away, right? Like
Oh
you're
yeah.
overcoming something first thing in the morning, your body's moving, you're getting a bunch of endorphin release and all that kind of stuff in your head too. Um, Now when I'm training for like my half right here, I have been doing morning runs consistently.
Mhm.
So much better, man, too, because you can do a run, let's say right at 6 a.m., run for an hour or whatever you want to do, and then 12 hours later, I'll do a lift at 6 p.m. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm refreshed enough to actively lift. Because when I was doing my marathon training this last summer, I went in with the intention of completely just doing hybrid training. I was like, I'm going to keep lifting, I'm going to run. And it soon did not work out that way because one, I wasn't doing morning runs. Then I was trying to run and then lift at the same time, kind of at night.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the mental energy or strength to do it. I felt like there was a lot of negative effects either in my lifts because of my runs or in my runs because of my lifts.
Yeah.
So I think having that like split up and doing either a morning run and a nighttime lift or a morning lift and a nighttime run, it's just so much better for your body.
Oh yeah. So when you train for your half then, are you ever going over 13 miles since you've done it before, or are you like strictly only going under or like at 13 miles?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not following as strict of a training guide as I was previously. I've kind of just been treating this more as like experimenting, feeling how my
Mhm.
body feels because I think I have a better understanding of like a good base and stuff. And by no means am I like an expert runner, but I just think I have a better understanding now, where I can kind of give myself that leeway. So
Mhm.
I probably won't go past 13. Um, but I probably will do a couple as I near more toward like my peak phase doing like 13-mile runs just to see my half marathon time because obviously right if I'm gonna able to run a half marathon in my training like at a rate relatively below 2 hours, I gotta
Mhm.
up my goal a little bit for the race day.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense too. Like you said, you know, if you're running it and you're kind of like already on pace to beat your goal, why
Yeah.
not like make the goal even more like, you know, like up the goal a little bit. I think that's really smart because I was curious too because you know, there's got to be a different mental aspect of doing something that you've already done cuz like doing, you know, you ran a marathon, so it's like I feel like there's a mental battle even with like saying, all right, now I'm gonna run half that distance, but
Yep.
like, you know, like even faster, like couple minute faster pace. It's
Yeah.
really interesting how different running can be because you can, you know, you could take someone who runs like a 5 minute mile and then but they're not gonna be able to run a marathon. And then you take a
Right.
marathon runner, they're not gonna be able to run a 5 minute mile. So it's super interesting. Like I like that you said too that you're experimenting because I think you have to approach it differently than a marathon. You know, like
Oh,
there's no
no,
way that it
no
could be
doubt.
the same.
Well, right. And like having that marathon experience, it's definitely not hurting me, right? Like
Oh yeah.
having that good base and all those miles under my belt now.
Hmm.
Um, but like at the same time, when I was doing my training for a marathon, I'm not running anywhere near eights. Like I'm doing most of my stuff in zone two, zone three, peak like heart rate zones. So I'm doing anywhere from like a 9 to a 10:30 mile.
Hmm.
Um, which is just like it's different muscles, it's a different feeling, all that kind of stuff. So this definitely you feel your heart rate going up a bit more sometimes. You're really pushing it. But it's I guess you gotta reevaluate it. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Do you listen to music when you run?
So sometimes, yeah, I usually bring headphones. But I find myself a lot of times when I'm like, especially like around races and stuff, and like when I really gotta like fight myself mentally, like a mental battle, I usually
Hmm.
turn it off and
Yeah.
just kind of focus on my breathing and stuff. It's not like that helps it go faster or anything. And I'm not just like a sicko who's like, feel like let me feel the moment, right? But I feel like it lets you really just be like connected with your body.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I've kind of experimented with music and without music as well, and I don't have like a super good pair of headphones where like I trust myself running in them too. So
Yeah,
I had a good pair of Bluetooth ones, but they just kind of like I don't know, somewhere along the line just like died. Like they just stopped working. And so I've even done like a mix of like especially if I'm in my neighborhood at night or in the morning and no one's around, playing it out of my phone. So it's almost like
yeah.
I listen to stuff around me, but I hear music too. And then I've done headphones before and then I've done no music too. Like I did no music on it was I think 16 miles and that one got pretty brutal. You have to really like
Yeah,
powerful self-talk comes into play. Like you have to
there's
start.
right. There's nothing like motivating you besides yourself.
Oh
Which like
yeah.
the self talk thing is such a big thing, man. Like, I mean, you like if you've never ran before and you're
Mm,
watching some guy doing 16 miles and he's on mile 15 and he's out there looking like crap. He's all sweaty and he's just repeating over and over to himself, just go, just go, just go,
yeah.
like consistently. You're like, dude, what a weirdo. But like when you're out there in that moment, you do whatever you freaking have to do, man. Whether that
Yeah.
you're making agreement with God, if you're talking to yourself or like just making small mental goals with every single step, you do some crazy things to get by, man.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure it does look pretty weird from the outside, But it's
Yeah.
like, too, though, like, you get to this place, like, mentally where it's like, you don't care, well, like,
No.
you're just running, like, talking to yourself out loud, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
it's keeping you going and, like, everything's revved up and people are I used to do this so I would run have you heard of Buc-ee's? It's like the huge, gas station, but
Yep.
it's real big in, like, Texas, and now it's, like,
Yeah, I
back
have.
in Florida, yeah. So, I can run, like, down the neighborhoods, and I can get to Buc-ee's, and I can get to Costco from, like, on my run, and it's, like, 3 miles in, and I'll just be looking at 'em like look at everyone, like, going to eat food at Buc-ee's, like, they're all so lazy. I was
Yeah.
like, "Look what I'm doing." I was like, "No
Some
one's working like
motivation.
me." I'm like, "No one's working like me, no one," and it's like, dude, they're probably just gonna pump gas in their car, and
Yeah.
I'm like a psycho. I'm like,
Right. Hey,
you
whatever
know
story you gotta make up to get yourself by, man.
yeah, no, yeah, you have to sometimes, but I think it's super, super powerful. My boss too, that I mentioned, John, who does the podcast, he tells a story of a guy who he did 6 double Ironmans, and the last time he did one, he was 59 years old. So he did an
Wow.
Ironman, and then the next day runs another one, and that's the biggest thing he would talk about too, was learning to talk to himself instead of listen, instead of listening, instead projecting like outwardly that positive
Yeah.
self-talk. And I think that's super powerful. And again, I don't know, something about running, I think it's so much different than weightlifting in that sense where it's like you really, really have to, because it's one foot after another.
Yeah.
You don't get to pause and like look at your phone in between sets or like
You're not getting any closer to the finish line, man. I'm sitting there, you know?
yeah, oh
Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. It's just it's such a mental dude, and again, that's why I have so much respect for people who run, especially coming from I also think it's a little different too, like not coming from like a cross country or a track
definitely.
background, because when you look at it as a sport and it's like what you grew up doing, I feel like it's a little easier to do it. But for someone like you or I who's like in college and like or just graduated and like learning and like getting into it, it's like running marathon is not what most people are doing. Like
No.
most people aren't doing it. And so I have a lot of respect for people who after like high school or college when they're not playing a sport anymore choose to get into fitness and especially
Yeah.
running, because I'm sure you could see it firsthand too. Once you're in college, it's like there's no incentive other than whatever desire that you have upon like how much you prioritize like just your well-being.
Yeah. It's all on you, man. And like everyone grows up from having like whether it's their parents or teachers or whoever telling them you're doing this at this time. You
Mhm.
know, you're completely dictating your life where you go to college or you're off on your own afterwards. It's all this freedom, which is like super cool and can be super useful if you use it right, but people
Mhm.
just don't know how to manage it or use it. So like when I got to college, like I said, I focused on lifting and stuff. And then when I really started doing like social media and doing fitness and really just kind of like falling in love with it, I just
Mhm.
like wanted to try all the things I hadn't, growing up. So like I tried running, I did jujitsu. I've tried 10 other different things, right? Like tennis here and there, pickleball, like all these different activities. Cause you got to find what you like, right? Like the way I see it is like use like the beginning of your 20s, just kind of like feel yourself out. Um,
Mhm.
it can like definitely pay off, and you probably do want to prioritize an activity if you want to get really, really good at something. But at the same time, there's no shame with kind of just trying everything out. Everyone back to the same point again. You got to just figure out what your goals are, which a lot easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. I'll sit in the mirror every day and be like, what are your goals? Like, what do you actually want truly? Because it changes a lot, man, and it's hard to have that consistent foundation. But I think it's super important to build it.
Oh yeah. What was your experience with jujitsu like? Because I did boxing for a while. I was
Yeah,
boxing in college for a little bit, even
nice,
to the
nice.
point where I was like I kind of want to for a minute I kind of wanted to check out the amateur route where I was like I really
Yeah,
kind of wanted to get a fight, and that ultimately didn't happen. And I've checked out a gym down here too, and as much as I love it, it's kind of like what you said where there I think there's other things I enjoy more, and
yep,
I also enjoy so many things that the path to fighting is like so fighting, and I feel like bodybuilding, like to be on stage, are very, very similar in the sense that like you don't really have much leeway, where it's like you can't be like training boxing and then like only going like 2 or 3 days a week. It's like no,
You
you
got to
have to be
commit.
like yeah, you have to be locked in, kind of like how to bodybuilding, you can't be like a 5 or 6 day a week bodybuilder. It's like all week.
Right.
And so I didn't end up like fighting and I don't know. I would do something for like a charity fight or something, but
Yeah.
that's all in the future that like, I can't like confirm or deny that I'll ever do it. But yeah, what was your experience with jujitsu then?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, I mean, what you were just saying though, with like, you got to really commit. You got to be obsessed with those kind of things. Bodybuilding, boxing, martial arts, whatever it is. If you want to be the top of at anything, you can't just like it. You got to love it.
Mhm.
Um, with jujitsu, I liked it. I didn't love it. Like, it's fun. I think it's a great experience. Coming from someone who's like pretty fit, and has like a good now has a good endurance background as well. I thought kind of going into it, like most guys, I'm sure, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna fight some guys. Anyone smaller than me, I'm gonna kick their ass, right?
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that's not the case at all. With jujitsu, you can have a guy who's 50 pounds less than you, and he'll tap you out, and your arm will be behind your head in some weird spot. You'll be hurting in every single joint and getting choked out all at the same time.
Yeah.
So jujitsu is super humbling experience, man. It's like something everyone should try. Um, for me, I like the physicality stuff. Like I played football growing up. It's not like I was necessarily always afraid to get physical, but for me, like something it's just not something I love. I guess. Good experience to try. Everyone should do it, man. But
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And I think it was kind of the same thing for me where it was like I liked it, like I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I loved it in the sense that I wanted to be doing it all this like
yeah,
I think I'm able to say that I love combat sports, but do I want to be doing them? I don't know. Like and
yeah,
that's why I think like even I feel like for however long, like, like I'm doing fitness and whatever, like I think there will definitely be times where like I go through phases where I just really want to hit the bag and I just bring my gloves and I do it as like the end of my workout or a cardio session or whatever. But it it's super humbling too, like you said, and it's I kind of dealt with the internal dialogue too, where I was like, well, if I quit, does that mean like I'm soft or like I'm scared to fight?
oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, if you could relate to that, like, because for me personally, I think that kept me doing it or like kept me like holding on to it for longer than I had to
Dude,
because I was like,
that is
bro, I
such
don't
a
want.
good statement. That is such a statement because I felt the same way. Where especially going in those kind of like gyms where people are tough, man. Like no doubt about it. Like it's such
Oh
a
yeah,
great environment because everyone is super disciplined. Obviously, I'm generalizing it, but everyone's pretty disciplined. Has a good mindset with it and like likes to work hard. Where you don't want to feel like you're kind of a pansy for wanting to back out of it or wanting to try different things. Like I remember same deal. I had a membership. I was paying whatever much money a month. I didn't cancel it for a couple months, even though I was like, this isn't really something I want to be doing anymore. Because I was like, I don't
mhm.
want to be like the guy who goes in there, a fit looking guy, rolls a couple times, then is like, you know what, this isn't for me and leaves. Like, you really got to swallow your ego and just be like, hey, accept, like, this isn't something I want to be doing. Like, it's cool. I enjoy it a little bit, but you got to really focus on what you want to do at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure too. Like most cases, people don't look at you in the way like because I felt the same way where I was like I don't want to be the guy that because I had like a real in-depth conversation with one of the coaches too, like the day before I stopped going about
Yeah.
like the path through like amateur fighting and like what it looks like, and then like I didn't go again, and I was like, yeah, I wonder if he's just like yeah, there's that one kid that like said he wanted to and didn't do it, so like. But at the end of the
You
day,
put that spot on, man. That's very well said.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like oftentimes they don't look at it as harshly as we like perceive them to,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like also too, it's like your life, like and if they do look at you like that, it's like whatever, that's on
Well,
them.
no, right. Who cares? It's exactly.
Yeah, but it's so funny that you had like the similar experience with that where
Same deal. I had a coach who was like kind of took a liking to me a little bit with
mhm,
things, and like I know it's not like not like saying I'm like best buddies with this guy, but he'd always there like pushing me and like was just like a good guy who cared about the students he's teaching. And I was going, and then he'd like he kind of give me grief if I didn't go for a day or something, or like had something else come up. He's like, oh, you got to keep going, keep grinding, and and then I stopped going. Right, I got ringworm. That's not. I mean, I probably would have stopped going even if I didn't get ringworm because
mhm,
same deal, like you said, I just wasn't loving it. I remember I'm at work one day, man. I'm at my desk. I'm like going to heat up my lunch. And I see this guy and he's at my work. He's like fixing our fridge at our company. And I'm like, great. And now I look like the guy who like, oh, a corporate guy can't hang, man. Like the bodybuilder guy can't hang with the actual tough guys. But same deal, at the end of the day, um, it's about how you feel. If someone doesn't respect you for something, it's you kind of just got to accept that. You can't please everybody.
Oh yeah. Did you talk to him when he was there? Like
Yeah,
when
I
you
mean he's
saw him?
cool, man. It's like I'm sure there are no hard feelings whatsoever. Like at the end of the day, like a true coach or someone who's into that wants to see you at your best performance, whether that's involved in the gym community, if not in it, it's they're not gonna hold that against you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you said, if they're a real coach and they truly care and they care about the sport and the people, I'm sure they don't want people doing it that don't want to do it. Because then
Yeah.
that hurts the environment in the gym if you have people, and then if you don't care, like it's a lot easier for you to get hurt too. Like if you're just rolling and like you're kind of like
Oh
just
yeah.
like halfway into it, and then you could hurt yourself too. But it's really interesting that super similar situation. Combat sports are just like it's something that I don't know, dude. It's kind of similar to like running in the sense like where you said some people like pick up running and then they do it for like a week or two and then they just don't want to do it anymore. Like
Yeah.
also like fighting too. I kind of you can get into it just like kind of like just thinking that you have what it takes to like you could just be like putting on the gloves with your buddies and like you get like one clean hit and you're
Yeah.
or you watch Rocky one time and you're like no way like I could do this and then you get in the gym and you're like yeah this isn't a Rocky movie like
Yeah. Sometimes we like the idea of something rather than the actual activity, man.
I think that's exactly how I feel too when it comes to combat sports like the idea like the big moment you get in the ring and like you knock some dude
Yep.
out it's like yeah, and that comes from I think like an intrinsic like desire though. Like I think we all want to be great, and that's like one
Yep.
outlet where like that's a tough road, and like a lot of fighters don't make a lot of money, and like you could go pro and like you could be a professional fighter after three amateur fights and like be nowhere near the top ranks, and it's like
Right.
that's such a brutal climb. But do you watch like MMA boxing and stuff?
A little bit. My roommates that I've lived with in college and now too are like super into it. So Saturday nights, we'll watch a UFC card and whatnot. But
Yeah, good card on this weekend too, actually.
yeah, they were talking about it. They just watched some analysis before the weekend to get pumped for it.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be sick, dude. That one probably be a bloodbath though too. Two
Yeah.
big brawlers, man. But yeah, I think it's a cool sport though. Like combat sports as a whole, and I've talked to a lot of people. Like I've talked to multiple people who have kind of been in the same shoes. Like I was boxing with one of my buddies, and he's kind of in the same shoes. So it's reassuring too. Like it's like not like a one person like scenario. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
try it out, and it's like not for them, or it's just they like it but they don't love it.
That's what it's about, man. You got to try new things with it. Like I hate being upon the idea of like I do one thing so I can't do another. Like for
Mhm.
example, like lifting, like you were talking about earlier. Some people think if you lift, you literally can't run because the second you start running, all your muscle just falls off. And
Yeah.
it's like it's not the case, dude. You gotta play around with what works for you. And I think it's hard to do nowadays too with like and everyone says it, same thing. Social media, it's like the cancer to our society and whatnot. I mean, it does a lot of good things for us, but having like so many perfect people and situations, it like just glorifies them, and that's what everyone sees. Even like you said with the fighting kind of thing, you see a pro fighter, you're like, dude, I want to be him. You go there, you
Mhm.
go to the gym, and you realize I don't want to be that guy. That sucks. Like this guy's freaking grinding his ass off for the last
Yeah.
last 15 years, every single day, eating the same crap, training hard as crap, getting everything beat up all the time, man. It's like it's everything's glorified, and it's tough. It's tough out here.
Yeah, no, social media has definitely warped the perception of really everything because we're able to see like the peak and be like, oh, I want to, like you said, like I want to get to that, but it's like, but you have no idea like how long it took to get there from that, and even like not just sports, but it's like social media or building a business or all of these things. It's like you can't blow up overnight, and so it's like that's
Right.
when you really have to lock in and be like, all right, so like what do I actually enjoy doing? If like would I keep doing it if I knew for a fact I wasn't gonna be successful at it? Like
Yeah.
and keep doing it just because you love it. And I think it just takes time though too, you know, like a lot of trial and error. And I think people are scared to try. And
No
I
doubt.
think that
Well, because it sucks. Failing sucks, man. But like the fear of failing is a lot of times way worse than actually failing.
Oh yeah, and the fear, yeah, the fear of failing, and then yeah, you have to also keep in mind too that like no one's ever gonna be good at something the first time they do it. And so it's
Right.
like how much are you willing to fail before you have that like first big win? You know, like because you could really like, you know, if you don't have a running background, it's like you run a mile and you're gassed and it's like, all right, well, yeah, you could stop running for good, or you could
Yeah.
run a mile every day till it turns into two, three, four, and then
Right. Right.
you're running marathons, you know? And so like I think it's just I don't know. I think fitness and life just have so many parallels in that,
Oh,
you
oh
know,
yeah.
and it's just
It's
yeah, it's so interesting.
it's awesome, man. I mean, I think it's hard to because like a lot of people judge their success strictly based on like reaching a certain goal. What I've kind of always just grown up like being born and raised in the Midwest, like our values, I feel like a lot of times are if you have something in front of you, like give it your 100%, do everything you possibly can toward it, like leave nothing left on the table. At the end of the day, it works out. And if it doesn't, you tried your best, man. Like that's really all you can do. Like I try to approach that with anything, whether that was college, studying, trying to get like perfect grades with things. If it's fitness, trying to accomplish a certain goal, like lifting or running a marathon, whatever it is, man. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily about, oh, how good was my result compared to someone else's. Um, it's for me personally, my fulfillment and sense of satisfaction is going to be did I put in the work necessary to make it happen? And did I give it my all and leave everything out there?
Yeah, and if you did that, and if you've given it everything, you can look at any situation, win, lose, or draw, and be like, I'm happy with the result. You know, obviously you never want to lose, but
Right.
if you
Right.
gave everything, it's like, is it really a loss? You know, like you can take a lesson from everything, really. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, I think yeah, again, like I think that fitness and just, you know, that entire just aspect of life just has so many parallels with like business and like really everything else. And so I think it's super cool that, you know, I feel like you could say the same thing that like fitness has like taught a lot of those lessons, those values, and you know, it
Yeah.
made you a better person as a whole too, you know.
It transfers over to every other aspect of your life, man. Whether it's work, school, like relationships, whatever. Like having that discipline and having like an idea of like constantly working toward like improving yourself in some way, it just helps all around, man.
Oh yeah. And yeah, as we come to a close and wrap this up, what advice would you have to anyone who's either, you know, trying to start their fitness journey or make content or build a business or like really whatever they're doing? What is some advice that you would have for
Yeah,
anyone who's
man.
looking for some
But
motivation?
focus on the basics first. Like don't overcomplicate it. Getting into anything is super intimidating. Like for example, I just bought a bike and there are million possible ways. There's a million people telling you start this way, start that way, start whatever. Start some way. Like it's not gonna be perfect at first, but you really have to experience it yourself. Treat it as a learning opportunity, and slowly over time through trial and error, you're gonna figure it out, and it's gonna pay off.
That's awesome, man. Start with the basics. I think that we could do that in a lot more things in life. And yeah, start with the basics. Don't be afraid to fail and keep in mind that it's only going to get better if you keep putting the work in. So, Jordan, I appreciate you, man. I'm really glad we got to do a podcast and then it turned into two. So, I'm
Yeah,
super
man.
stoked about that. And anytime you want to be back on, just let me know.
Sounds good, Chaz. Yeah, nice meeting you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. God bless.
See ya.